Hi, and welcome to A Balanced Life. I'm Patricia, and I'm so happy to be here with you, having this conversation and creating community around self care, specifically for those of us in our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. What is self care? Well, self care is really about how we care for ourselves, our physical health, our emotional health, and our mental health. And sometimes, we talk more about the physical health because that's the most accessible, that's the most universally accepted. And actually, when I came onto the YouTube community looking for, um, podcasts and conversations around self care, a lot of that was focused on skincare and how we dress as we age. And I loved that content. I think it's informative and it's helpful, a lot of great information. But I was missing the conversation around the inner work of self care. So I'm hoping that together with your help, we will create this channel and this community where we can share resources and ideas on ways to help us embrace this chapter of our lives. There's a lot that we don't have control over, but there are things in our day that we do get to make choices on. And are those choices that we're making, is it bringing the kind of support and joy that we need in our day? We're not just surviving, we're thriving. So when I think about self care in my 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, I'm looking at ways to improve my physical health so that, each day maybe I have a little less aches and pains that I did before. And how am I doing that? Am I eating well? Am I sleeping okay? Am I moving? So, eating, sleeping, and moving, those are three things that we know for physical health are extremely important. When I think about my mental health, am I stressed? Do I have a lot of anxiety? Am I constantly ruminating on challenges and potential problems? Or am I finding some relief and release throughout my day? And then when I think about my emotional health, am I, again, that nervousness or anxiety? Am I feeling lonely? Am I enjoying my alone time? Do I have a connection to something outside of myself, whether it's one person or a community? So, there's a lot of ways that we can think about self care specifically for our age. In all likelihood, if you're anything like me, you've been working, you've raised kids, maybe they've launched, maybe they're back at home. Maybe you have aging parents, you maybe have lost friends or family members. I mean, this is just what life brings us as we age. And a lot of that can be challenging. These are transitions that we're talking about, but there's no bigger transition, I don't think, besides adolescence, than when we reach this time and chapter in our lives. Frankly, I think if we've made it this far, we've won the lottery. But that doesn't mean we don't have challenges ahead. So, my goal is to create what I like to call a toolkit. So, I like to have all of these resources around self care that I can pull out as I need them. What I need on a Monday is not the same as I need on a Saturday, and the winter is different than the summer. It's raining today. I don't know if you can see that behind me. I need something different today in the rain than I do on a sunny day. So a lot of these things, that what's happening outside with the weather, these things actually affect my mood, something I have no control over, but I can control the things that I bring into my life to help alleviate some of the maybe negative feelings I have on any particular given day. Also, it's about creating a little bit of resilience and self reliance. It can be challenging at this time. Maybe you're feeling a little bit more alone than you typically are. Maybe you have some isolation. Sometimes that happens because of illness. Sometimes it's just maybe you're no longer working and your circle of people who you're around all the time are no longer there. So we can have feelings of isolation. And so what can we do to bring into our day to help us feel a little bit more connected? If you're inclined, I'd love you to share in the comments ways that you bring self care into your life. Today, though, we're going to be talking about self care snacks. And then we're going to talk about glimmers. Glimmers, I'm excited to get to, but I'm saving that till the end. But let's start with our self-care snacks. So the purpose of the videos are, to bring up some maybe ideas and share some practices around self-care, just a different way to think about self-care. As I said, sometimes when we think about self-care, we're thinking about manicures and pedicures, massages. Those are all, I'm all for those. I 100% love all of those. So I will never knock that. As a matter of fact, I think if you have those in your life, you're very fortunate. I think they're very effective self-care tools. But again, we're looking at something that affects us from the inside out. So self-care snacks are meant to be accessible, delicious, nourishing, small little bites, moments. They don't take our whole day. That's another thing about self-care. Sometimes we can have this misconception that, oh my gosh, one more thing I have to put into my day. Now I have to think about every choice I make physically, mentally, and emotionally. I just don't have time for all of this. Well, this is where, the good news is around self-care is that these small moments can have a huge effect in the moment and then a longer lasting effect. With each video, we're going to share some practices. And so this first self-care snack is called Stop, Breathe, and Be. So this is easy breath work. And all I do in these moments, when I'm feeling rushed, maybe I'm feeling like I'm moving from one thing to the next, maybe I'm still working, so I've got a meeting and then I've got a deadline to meet and then I've got family needs and I'm rushing around and I start to stumble with my words, maybe my emotion is heightened. What I do is I just stop where I am. I take a deep breath and be. So that snack number one is stop, breathe, and be. What that practice does is, and I encourage you to try it where you are, just stopping, breathing, and be. So I've stopped my busy mind, all that motion that's happening, that whooshing and whirling around that I can get caught up in. I just stop, physically stop where I am and make myself stand still. Then I take one deep breath. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. The inhale breath is cleansing. The exhale, the sigh, is that longer one, deeper, and that's the relaxing. And then the be is just thinking about this moment, stopped and focused. So I've done whooshing, I've stopped breath work, and now I'm centered. This, for me, works every single time. Sometimes I don't have to be physically moving. Sometimes it's just my mind. My mind gets going. I get busy. Some people call it the monkey brain. I've heard it called that. For me, it's just constant busy thoughts, one over the other. I'm always multitasking. I can be overwhelmed by myself. So what I do in those moments is I just wait a minute, wait. Just pause for a second. Take that breath, and then you're more centered. So that is the self-care snack number one. And so, as I said, we're going to do 3 self-care snacks with this video, and we're going to talk about Glimmers, and then we'll revisit self-care snacks in some coming videos. Because as I said, these are accessible tools that you just bring out as you need them. I should say, I do the stop, breathe, and be at the stoplight when I'm driving. Okay, because what I find is that I can be in traffic, it's getting busy, especially around rush hour. People are zooming and coming and going, everybody's got a place to be. And it can get a little harried out there. When I'm at a stoplight, I just take that moment, think to myself, just stop, just breathe it through, and you're centered again. All right, so that was self-care snack number one. Self-care snack number two is gratitude. So gratitude in 3. 3 things I'm grateful for. I like to start my day with this and end my day with this. So it's not that I have made a big practice out of remembering my 3 gratitude pieces, although they are wonderful. This is a wonderful way to access another kind of self-care into your life. And we'll talk about gratitude maybe at another time as well. For our purposes today, though, I think about three things I'm grateful for. So when I wake up in the morning, it just helps me set my day. What are three things I'm grateful for? I can think about this as I'm making my coffee. I think about my three things maybe when I'm brushing my teeth first thing in the morning or getting dressed. Just like to think about, what are three things I'm grateful for? And it takes literally 30 seconds. I can be grateful that it's raining outside. I can be grateful for, clean clothes. I can be grateful for something that's about to be happening in my day. So these gratitude reminders and reflections don't need to be like the grand gestures. They can just be the small little things. At nighttime when I'm brushing my teeth, especially if it's been a particularly challenging day and I'm feeling maybe a little heavier, I like to just think, three things I'm grateful for. I can be grateful the day's over. I can be grateful for mint toothpaste, grateful that I had a nice dinner. Maybe I spoke with a friend, maybe had a wonderful interaction with somebody that was unexpected. Again, they don't have to be the big emotional moments. They can just be small reminders, small moments of when you had joy or happiness or you had a sense of well-being. Okay, so that is the gratitude snack. And what that does is if you do the practice in the morning, it kind of sets you up for a more positive mindset for your day. And over time, there is a cumulative effect to this sense of well-being. It becomes easier to access. You find that you're deeper and centered and more rooted. And remembering these three things you're grateful for just helps you in the moment feel better. At nighttime, though, this helps me sleep. I'm someone who can ruminate, lie awake at night, or fall asleep and wake up and just start thinking something through, a challenge or something that's been bothering me. What I find is if I do my gratitude at night, again, I typically do this while I'm brushing my teeth. I'm just thinking about three things I'm grateful for. And when I do that, it just helps reset my mind, resets my brain onto a different track. So that's self-care snack number 2, gratitude. Self-care number 3 is what I call the 90-second brain dump. So what this is a journaling practice, and you can do this any time in the day. You can do it first thing in the morning, you can do it at night, you can actually incorporate your gratitude practice into that, or you can do it anytime throughout the day, especially if you're feeling some stress or anxiety or your mind is busy. All you do is you set your timer on your phone for 90 seconds, and then you just put pen to paper and you write out whatever is on your mind. You don't worry about punctuation, don't worry about grammar. It's just a stream of consciousness. It doesn't matter how it sounds, it doesn't matter how it looks. You just for 90 seconds write. Now, the research shows that when you do a prompt like this, when you write out especially something that's been bothering you, it can have the same physiological effect as talking to a good friend. And why that is because you've taken it out of your mind, especially if you've taken pen to paper and you've put it out onto the paper, out of your head somewhere else. It's almost like compartmentalizing it. Now, it doesn't go away, right? It doesn't necessarily fix the challenge, although maybe it does for you. Maybe writing it out gives you clarity. That would be the ultimate bonus, I think. But really the benefit is of alleviating the stress that you're feeling in the moment with this very practical and short snack of self-care. So 90-second journal prompt called the 90-second brain dump. I use it often, and it's something that I do when I'm doing workshops and group talks around self-care. And I love looking out when I'm doing a presentation and watching everybody so busily writing. So that is self-care snack number 3, the 90-second brain dump. And this brings us to glimmers. What are glimmers? Well, glimmers are micro moments of joy that bring a sense of calm and well-being. This phrase was coined by a social worker named Deb Dana, and I will link her information in the show notes. And she recognized that glimmers can bring a sense of calm, as I said, to ourselves, a sense of well-being, and they make us feel connected, and they have an effect physiologically on ourselves, emotionally, mentally, and physically. And so glimmers can be something that we, with one or more of our five senses, we see or we hear, and it brings an automatic sense of and moment of calm. We recognize something in it that brings us joy. Now, as we've said already, self-care is very individual. So my micro moment of joy, my joy snack, may be different from yours, and it may be something actually that triggers you. Right? So it's very individual. It's a beautiful thing about self-care. You get to decide for yourself where you find this joy. Now, glimmers are small. They can be maybe a rainbow, maybe that the feeling of the sun. It uses our five senses. We have to recognize it so we have an awareness of it. We reflect, and right away we feel a connection to something other than ourselves. Could be a past memory. Often that is for me. Could be something that just makes you laugh and brings you joy every time you see it. But there's a way to bring these glimmers and make sure that they're always there in your day. So, yes, it's one thing, and it's a beautiful thing to be just out and recognize a glimmer. Maybe it's, as I said, the sun. Maybe you're in your car and your favorite song comes on, or music that you enjoy, and you take a moment and enjoy that. That's a glimmer. So you can also set up your environment so that you have moments of glimmer that you just come across. So on my desk, for example, I would have, let's say, a trinket or a bauble that if you came into my office, you'd think that's interesting. I have no idea what that's about, but there's a weird rock sitting on Patricia's desk. For me, that rock means something special. I look at that in my day, and automatically I'm like, I remember a moment. I have a memory around that that makes me feel good. So set up glimmers throughout your environment, throughout your home, throughout your office or workspace, in your car, so that when you see that glimmer, when you see that piece of memorabilia, maybe it's a photo, whatever it is, that it brings you that moment of joy and peace and connection. And what that does is, again, it's like a self care snack. It just reminds us of something outside of ourselves in that moment. And often that's all we need, just to bring a little bit of joy or to reset the track that we're playing mentally in our minds. So, self care snacks and glimmers, just one fun way to think about bringing self care in an accessible way into our lives. You know, self care is supposed to feel good, right? Sometimes it comes because we're up against something, or we've felt some conflict, or we have anxiety. We're looking for ways to alleviate that. But self care is resourceful. It teaches us to be self reliant. So now we're building an environment around ourselves that supports our physical and mental well-being. We look at that, we recognize that, and it has a good memory for us, or it makes us feel good. Maybe you have a special blanket you like to have on near the couch at night when you're like snuggling on a colder day. I mean, that's a glimmer. You've got that special thing that you've set up. You're creating an environment for you that helps you feel nourished, right? That supports you in this day to help you live the life that you want to live. You know, self care does not take the place of any medical, emotional, or mental health professional services that you get, but it does help build our arsenal, our toolbox, as I've said, of practices that we can pull out as we need them, and they can be of support to us. You know, I want to be resilient as I'm aging. I've learned a lot, and I know you have too, from these years. And I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've also made a lot of good choices. And I want to keep making better choices for myself as I age in this next chapter. So, if you have any comments, any self care practices that you could share in our chat, and that in the comments, and that if you wouldn't mind, I might share them in future videos because I think it's really important that we learn from each other. I'm excited to hear what you've got to say and to hear about your practices and how you're incorporating self-care into your life. We've got lots to talk about. So thanks for being here. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again. In the meantime, make a good choice for yourself that makes you feel good today.